We knew we wanted kids right away, so we tried and were successful within a few months, and everything went really smoothly. I did kind of like talk to them about some pain I was starting to have on the left side of my incision. I'll never really, I think, know the truth, how I got
the
infections and everything that happened after the fact. The very next day, the pain was growing, and then I started running like a low-grade fever. I was very weak. The pain was just like astronomical. They were doing all kinds of testing at that point, blood work, cultures, I mean, everything. At this point, I didn't know I was in septic shock. So my organs were shutting down. I went into the surgery. I thought I was just going to have the one surgery, wake up, and be fine. I woke up 3 days later. I went through a lot, I think, to get to the point of where I can talk about it. I was having these, like, unexplained, like, hysteria moments. Like, oh, I'm finally getting better, right? So I started seeing real results in my healing, and that really spiked my mental health. Then, of course, like, that crashed, and then I didn't know where to go after that.
Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Carla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about real people, real issues, and real talk. Welcome back to Mental Perk. Today is our guest, Amber DeWitt, a courageous mother who faced unimaginable challenges in her journey in motherhood. We began as she planned water birth, and birthing center quickly turned into an emergency C-section, setting the stage for a series of life-changing events. After a rapid recovery that spiraled into a life-threatening sepsis and multiple surgeries, Amber spent months battling her physical and emotional pain. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Amber. We're so happy to have you.
We're so excited to have you. So,
congratulations on the little,
the baby.
the little one.
Yeah,
so how old is he now?
He is 18 months, almost 19 months.
So sweet. Love that age.
He's very active. He's very funny, getting a big personality. But he's doing great, and everything's good with him. And we are actually building a house, so things are
moving along.
Up. Yeah, so feeling a lot better nowadays, you know.
Finding those greener pastures on the other side.
Yeah, finally. It felt like it would never get there, you know, but it is finally, like, coming to fruition and things. A lot of prayers.
Lots of prayers,
So, yes.
So you decided that you and your husband, y'all decided we're going to have this baby. Kind of walk us through what are your process and the thoughts and what you were thinking. And
we always knew we wanted kids right away. My husband and I got married 10 months after meeting as strangers.
Oh,
nice.
And it was just kind of
love at first sight.
Yeah, we only had a 6-month engagement. It was very, like, quick, and we just knew, you know. And so both of us being so close to 30 at the time, now we're both in our 30s, we knew we wanted kids right away. So we tried and were successful within a few months, and everything went really smoothly. In fact, we moved from Colorado back to Texas, I was 6 months pregnant, I think, at that time, or 5 months probably. And then we switched over to a midwife for OB care and all that kind of stuff, or prenatal. And it all went really smoothly. I had a very smooth pregnancy. So.
Which we're hearing a lot of. We had a midwife on our show not too long ago.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of transition into that.
Yes.
More, and it's more trending, actually.
I think your generation is more about that natural, more...
Yes.
They just want that experience.
Which we weren't.
So
we were just like...
make it stop hurting.
Epidural.
How quickly can I get that epidural?
Yeah. Can you just go ahead and induce me in 8 months?
I know. Honestly, it was like we were going to go in, do a natural water birth at a birthing center. Obviously, like, no epidural, no pain meds, no nothing. It was going to be fully natural and a water birth, of course. So we were prepping for that. And in my 3rd trimester, he flipped into, like, the breech position.
Oh, no.
And that is kind of, like, where everything kind of started.
Yes.
So I tried everything. I was doing, like, handstands and flips in the pool. I was trying to talk to him. There's, like, a program called Spinning Babies that has, like, all these different positions or stretches or things you can do to try and help your child flip in the belly. I didn't want to there's, like, a manual way a doctor can, like, switch them up in your belly, like they manually push them around. And I was really nervous about that because there's, like, a 50% chance of C-section.
Okay.
And so I was like, no, I don't want a C-section.
But of course,
We don't always get to predict those things.
Yeah, God laughs at our plans, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, so we didn't want to do that, so we were trying everything, and it just wasn't working, but I still was really hopeful. So many people, they'll flip the last minute. So many breech babies, they flip at the last minute.
Well, I mean,
That
that's
is
true.
true.
It
That
is
is
true
true.
because
Yeah.
And I
think-
really still to this day
Yeah.
believe it, but it was like it just didn't come.
Yours was just, he was showing
True
a little
for my
of his
story.
personality.
He was a little too comfy in there.
He's like, no, we're going to give you a big old scar, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so we ended up like just waiting and waiting. And even my midwife was like, we really need to talk about C-section options. And I was like, no, like he's going to do it. I believe in him. And like, we're going to have this natural birth. I was like really just
You were set on
super
it.
focused.
Yeah.
And then we went, my midwife came in.
Okay.
And we were kind of just checking on baby, of course, normal stuff. And he wasn't really moving much at all. So she was like, I don't feel good about that, you being this far along. I was about 38 weeks at that time.
Okay.
And so she sent us to Baylor. That's her preferred hospital, so here in Dallas. So we went there to get just like a exam. They do, check on the baby, do an exam, and all
Kind
the
of hook
things.
you up to a
sonogram.
monitor. and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah, they do a sonogram, like ultrasound, I think. They do a
So,
cervix exam.
I'm going to stop you there because what happens when you do have a midwife and they just send you to the hospital? Are you just given any random OBGYN to look at you? Or?
So they have like a pregnancy triage. It's
Okay.
kind of like the ER for pregnant women. You get like they have their own little ER section in the hospital, so
Okay.
that because they are priority care,
Okay.
because you're pregnant, especially
Yeah.
being so far along, so that way you don't have to wait with all like the general
Right.
ER population and stuff.
Okay.
So it just kind of gets you through quicker and gets you seen faster and more like attentive care, which is really nice that they have that these
Yeah.
days, because I don't know if
100%.
that's been a thing much longer.
No, I think back in the day, they just let you have a kid on the floor.
And
And they still may in some hospitals, I'm just saying.
Yeah. But that is nice that it kind of separates it out. 'Cause the problems are very different,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Yes.
you don't want to get sick in the waiting if
Yeah.
someone's got a viral or whatever.
I mean,
and
we
your
waited
mama,
like 10 minutes and we were in.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is so nice.
Yeah.
You know?
concierge. Yeah.
Literally. I mean, you feel like kind of VIP when
Yeah.
you're going in. So it was a really great experience, and baby was good. Everything was looking good. They're like, you're actually having some small contractions. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I didn't even feel them. I thought I had been having Braxton Hicks, so I just kind of assumed that's what they were. And they were like, oh, no, you're actually 1 centimeter dilated as well. And I was like, oh.
And he's still flipped.
And he was still flipped.
Oh, gosh.
And I
okay.
was like, okay. But, like, I've always heard from several, my friends who are mothers and things, that, like, being 1 centimeter dilated is not very uncommon to stay that way.
Oh, yeah,
even
quite a
for
while.
You can stay
several
there
days,
for,
or some people, like, I've heard even, like, weeks. Like,
Yep.
So I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we still got time.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think anything of it. Like, we went back to Rockwall and got Mika Cena and, like, ate dinner like it was a normal night.
Casino, one of the best.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, we really didn't think anything of it. I woke up about 6 a.m. the next morning. My stomach was, like, cramping and just, like, having, like, troubles in my stomach. And I just thought, oh, the baby didn't like the Mexican food last night.
Try Glorious.
Yeah, right? I know. And so I was like, oh. And so I just thought it was that, because he had done that to me a few times in the past with other foods and stuff. And so I was like, okay, I didn't think anything of it. Well, then the cramps kind of were like coming and going.
Oh,
And
now you're
then
getting the
more
picture.
I was like,
Contractions.
well, that's kind of weird.
Mhm.
And then my sister, about 2 weeks prior, we had my baby shower, and she was in town. She lives in North Carolina. And she had me download an app that said, like, that you track your contractions. You, like, start and stop. And it tracks, like, how long they are and how far in between. So I started doing that. Well, in between was only, like, a minute and a half. And I was like,
oh, my goodness.
I was
Amber.
like, oh.
That's crazy.
And I still wasn't convinced. I don't know why. I think it's just because my first baby, you're so ignorant. I'm like, it's not like ignorant, but just for lack of a better word, you just really don't know what to expect.
You don't.
Experience.
You
No
don't.
experience.
You're
Yeah,
right.
so
You're
it's just
very
lack of
right.
experience. But so I had the app. I texted a screenshot like 7 a.m. finally. An hour later, I sent it to my midwife, and I was like, I still don't know, like, if these contractions are like, you think it's just the Mexican food? Like, I still wasn't fully convinced after an hour. And, and I'm like, you would think, but, I guess I wasn't. And so then she texted me and she was like, I think you're in labor. And she was like, you should probably go to the hospital and I'll meet you there. Because we knew he was still wasn't flipped. So that's why we didn't, like, try to go to the birthing center.
No, yeah. Good choice. Good
otherwise,
choice.
we would have, you know, if he was in the right position, we would have just gone straight to the birthing center.
Right.
But with him still being breech, and we had just found that out the night before, we were like, okay, well, I hadn't felt him move or anything as far as, like, flipping back. So we went to the hospital to schedule a C-section. But I didn't want to go until she came to give me, like, a cervix exam.
Okay, she sounds just like our old guest, like our last guest.
I was like, listen to your body.
Yeah, yeah.
You literally.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
that is so important. And also, like, I didn't have health insurance.
Okay.
And that really, like,
That played a stressor in your
It did. It
decisions?
really made me more stubborn in getting
Okay.
care sooner because I was like, I don't want to go again and then be like, you're fine and go home. You know, so
But regardless, the care is so much more important.
Exactly.
Yeah, they work
Yeah.
all that insurance stuff out
But
later.
it does make sense too, because I think a lot of people probably experienced what you
Sure.
experienced.
Absolutely.
They don't want to go back and be sent home and get another bill.
Yes.
So I get why you did it.
Because I'm like, oh, the ER, like, that is always more expensive. I mean, anything at the hospital, really.
Yeah.
But medical is just so expensive and insurance is so expensive. And so we were, like, just in between. It didn't have coverage. And anyway, we decided, I was like, I'm just going to wait till she comes and so she can give me an exam and confirm, yes, you need to go. Yes, you're in labor. Well, it took her like 30 minutes to get there. And literally just in those 30 minutes, I went from, I think these are cramps, I'm not sure, to like sweating bullets, like in full labor at that point. I was fully aware I was in labor because there was no denying it. And she showed up and she was like, I don't even have to check you out. Like, just looking at you, I know, like, let's go. We need to go to the hospital right now. So we drove all the way to Baylor, and it was like out of a movie scene. My poor husband.
Baylor, Dallas.
Yes.
Okay.
From Rockwell, yeah.
From Rockwell,
So
on
we're like
30.
a 20 to 30 minute drive, and I'm having like back-to-back like strong contractions, so I'm like holding onto the thing, and my poor husband, I'm like, ah! Like,
Y'all needed a
screaming.
camera in the car. That would have been great.
I was like, this is straight out of a movie. And he was just so like panicked, but I was like, don't drive too slow, but don't drive too fast. You know, so I was like,
He's like, don't have the baby.
honestly, my midwife, she told me after the fact, she was like, if he had been in the right position, you would have absolutely had him in the car.
Wow.
Because like, it was just, I was, she said I'm one of like the fastest labors she's seen. I only like labored 3.5 hours that I felt. I think I slept through a majority of my labor, which was a blessing. But
Right.
yeah, so by the time I got to the hospital, around like 8:30 in the morning, and they were like, yeah, you are fully complete then, like you're already 4 centimeters dilated. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And
happened so
and they said, we're
fast.
going to have to, you know, obviously we're going to schedule a C-section, but it'll take about an hour. Somebody's already getting one right now. And I looked at her, I said, an hour? I was like, I don't have an hour. Like, there's no way. And she's like, well, we'll get an epidural. That will kind of help because my contractions, there were no breaks anymore. Like, just getting out of the
one after
car
another.
and walking down the hallway was like, I had like 3 contractions on the way there. Like, I couldn't even hardly walk anymore. I kept having to stop. And so I was like, I don't have an hour. Like, there is just nonstop contractions going on now. So they said, well, we'll give you an epidural. That will help. And, you know, and then we'll just wait to get you in there. Well, because I was contracting like so often, my veins were like constricting. They were having a really hard time getting an IV in before they can give me an epidural. And so it felt like forever for her to come in there to even get it in there. And then she couldn't get it in. So then they were like, went to go, I guess, get a smaller needle, or she was going to get a different nurse. Well, when she left, I was like standing kind of over the bed, and my body just kind of took over. Weston was very eager to get here, and I just like pushed without trying, and my body was just like taking over. Like full instincts were kicking in, the whole 9, and I screamed out because I knew I wasn't supposed to, right? So I screamed. I was like, I'm pushing. They were like, no, 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 and all these nurses rushed in, and they checked again. I think I had dilated even more. We went into, they rushed me straight into the OR, and we, of course, are like moving over to the OR table and doing all the things. They're trying to prep, still can't get an IV in me. And then I pushed again, And at this point, they're like, don't push. I'm like, I'm really trying not
Yeah,
to. Like, I
remember that. There's no stopping it. There's no stopping. You can't not
like,
push.
Yeah, I was like, this is not
Yeah.
me. Like, my body has taken over. I
Yeah.
have, like, no more control.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I felt something had moved down. And I was, like, scared that it was his feet. I was really concerned that, like, I was trying to, like, push him down. And I was like, oh, that cannot happen. So I started freaking out in the OR, and they were like, oh, it's fine. We don't see anything. And I was like, no, you need to check because, like, something is, like, different.
Yeah.
And so
Again, that time you listened to your body. Good
yeah.
job.
Yes, I know, right? As soon as he, like, went to go check, my water broke all over the OR table, and it was just, like, so it sounded like somebody just poured a bucket of water out. I mean, it's crazy. And that part of like the whole delivery is what, like, makes me skeptic, because it was mixed with, like, meconium. Like, the baby had passed, like, a bowel movement through the labor and everything. And so they were already opening, like, sterile utensils and everything right there, you know, where they're about to perform the C-section. Well, then when my water broke, like, that's just always been, I'll never really, I think, know the truth, how I got
the
infections and everything that happened after the fact. But my own theory is, like, what if even a drop of my water that broke, like, splashed up on a utensil they already opened, you know, that was sterile, and now it's not sterile, but they don't know. You know, they can't see that. And so I don't know for sure, right? So just my own little theory. But so it was very rushed, and when my water broke, then they all went frantic, and they kicked out my midwife and my husband because they had to put me under anesthesia. They were like, this baby has to come out, like, right now. We cannot even wait for epidural.
So you still hadn't had had they gotten the IV established yet?
Finally, like, right before my water broke.
Okay.
Yeah, luckily. They had gotten it in, and they were asking me how I wanted the epidural, like, in my back or somewhere else they could do. I forget. There's so much going on, so it was like a haze. But so then we had the baby. He was born 55 minutes from the time we pulled into the parking lot.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh.
So it was extremely rushed. Like, it was just like, go, go, go the whole time. After we had him, it was, like, total bliss. Those first 2 nights in the hospital, they have you stay, like, 2 nights after a C-section. And it was awesome. Everything was going great. I felt fine. The baby was doing good. He was passing all his tests, flying colors, and it was just, like, those really, like, blissful moments.
Those moments you were waiting for.
Yeah. And so it was great. We got released on time and no complications. I did kind of, like, talk to them about some pain I was starting to have on the left side of my incision from the C-section, and they said, oh, you know, it's normal to, like, feel a little pain here and there. You had a pretty big surgery. And I said, okay, yeah, it's really not, like, that bad. So we went home. The very next day, the pain was growing, and then I started running, like, a low-grade fever. And I still didn't think a whole lot about it, but I had my husband, like, go down there and, like, check it out on the incision. And he was like, I don't know, it kind of looks a little crazy. And so we thought, well, maybe it's coming apart because they just use that bondage glue now. Right. And so I thought it was coming apart. So we went to, like, a more smaller local hospital, the one in Rowlett. And we went there, and at first, when they came in, like, the doctor really was pretty dismissive, in my opinion. I didn't feel like I got quality care there. And I wish I had gone back to Baylor. I think that I could have avoided a lot of my life-threatening situations if I had done that. Because she didn't really want to look at it. She kind of just briefly, like, peeked over and was like, it's not coming apart. It's fine. And I was just like, and then tried to leave. And then I was like, hold on. Can you come back? Why am I running a fever? Why is the pain growing? Why is it only localized in one spot? Like, there has to be something going on.
Those are very, I mean, I know you're young, but those are really good questions you're asking the doctor.
100%.
And she just told you, like, it's in your head?
Yeah, she was like, okay, well, she came back and finally put some gloves on and, like, really examined it. And that was after, like, I stopped her from leaving the room. And she said, oh, I think you just got, like, a bacterial infection starting and a moisture bacteria.
Okay.
And we'll send you home with antibiotics. and just put like a little maxi pad on there to like soak up any excess moisture. But like no direction on like how often to change it or like anything. So, you know, when you're in that newborn first few days, you're just like such a haze because you're exhausted, and you're worn out,
so much.
You're in pain from your surgery, and so it's just like I just had that thing on there, and I changed it every day or maybe twice a day, but I didn't know like if it mattered to change it more often or not. And
I mean, she didn't tell you to get it wet or not get it wet,
it
or
was
heat or
just
cold.
like,
She didn't tell you anything.
Just put it on there and get the antibiotics. So then they sent my antibiotics to like the wrong place, and so we couldn't find it. So it took us like we didn't get it till the very next day or day after. So anyway, the following day, so of course we went home, and then the following day my fever went up to about 102 or a little over.
Yeah.
At that point I really should have gone back to the hospital, but I was being very stubborn again with the no insurance.
We gave you a kudos a second ago, and now we got to take them back.
I know. Pull it back. It was a learning experience, I can tell you.
Yes, audience, make sure you're listening to your body.
Yeah. Today's episode is sponsored by Hudson Financial Group. At Hudson Financial Group, their goal is to make sure your life is fully covered. Do you truly understand your current insurance coverages? Are you protected for the things you need and not paying for the things you don't? Come by and let them help maximize and understand your coverage. With access to multiple carriers, they'll find the best protection at your best price for you. Whether it's home, auto, farm, and ranch commercial coverages, bonds, life insurance, or financial planning, Hudson Financial Group is your one-stop shop for insurance and retirement needs. Stop by today.
Honestly, that is like my biggest, if I could tell anybody, it's just definitely listen to your body regardless of your financial situation, because I feel like it definitely played a factor, right? Because I should have gone back to the hospital when I had 102. Yeah. They even tell you, like, on your discharge paperwork, like, if you have a fever that reaches over 101, that you need to come back.
And
but to be fair, too, though, I'm sure you were thinking, though, Amber, that the doctor was kind of dismissive. She didn't act like this was something to be worried about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of times whenever I've done it, and I'm sure you have, too, when you're like, I don't really need to go, and you really probably should have gone.
Yeah.
Right? So,
exactly.
It's because we assume that the doctors
know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I was just trusting. And we finally got the antibiotics that afternoon, so I took some, but the pain was growing and my fever was going up, and my husband was like begging me to go back to the hospital, and I was like, let's just let the antibiotics, give them a chance to work, you know, like maybe the antibiotics will kick this, and then we don't have to like go in for another bill, you know, and that was on like a Wednesday, and we had gotten home from the hospital Monday, so as far as like just being originally discharged from the birth and stuff. And then going into Thursday morning, I woke up at like 3 a.m., and it was like the worst pain I've ever felt. It was way worse than any of my contractions. It was very it's very hard to describe because it was very deep in my body. And so it had moved from like the localized side of my incision up into my abdomen, the pain did. And so that's why I was like, okay, I think something is wrong.
Yeah.
And at that point, I took my temperature. It was like 103.8.
Oh, gosh.
But I was in so much pain, and I was, with that high fever, you get that haze again. I was just, and in the first few days of post-birth,
I was your baby, too.
I was just not in a clear mind.
Yeah.
And so my first thought was to get up and go get ice packs. And that's what I did, and my husband was sleeping. We were living with my mom at the time because we were transitioning, moving back from Colorado, and she had fallen asleep on the couch or something, and I walked right past her and everything. I wish somebody would have woken up and been like, what are you doing? Like, we need to go to the hospital. But it just didn't work out that way, and that's okay. So I went and got like 5 or 6 ice packs, came back to the bed. I just put them all over my body. I just waited like 20 minutes, and they had given me like a 10-day prescription for hydrocodone. For my surgery, the C-section. So I took one of those to help break the fever and help the pain. And it did. I took my temperature 20 minutes later. It was like 101 or something like that.
So you're like, okay, this is working.
Yeah, and I said, okay, that's good enough. Like, I went back to sleep. And I was just so exhausted. My body was exhausted. And woke up the next morning around like 6:37. and I just felt like I couldn't even move. I was very weak. The pain was just like astronomical, and I just was like crying. I didn't know what to do, and my husband was like, we're going to the hospital. Like, I don't care what you say at this point because this is not normal.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. And then he kept saying, do you want to go? I was like, I don't know. Like, I was just so out of it. I mean, you really can't make decisions at that point when you're in that much pain and you're that high feverish and so much going on. So I took another hydrocodone, which I probably should have waited because when we got to the hospital, I had broke my fever. So when they do the initial triage, I wasn't considered like a priority because I didn't have a high fever anymore.
Oh, gosh.
And so from the time that I got to the ER until I was into my emergency surgery was like 4 hours. Well, they were doing all kinds of testing at that point, MRI with dye and
Blood work.
X-rays, blood work, cultures, I mean, everything. At this point, I couldn't go to the restroom anymore. They wanted a urine sample with the blood work and everything. And usually, I have a very small bladder. I can, like, go on command. I mean, literally, that is never an issue. So when it was, I was like, well, that's weird, you know? And
so basically, your organs started to shut down.
yes. So now, at this point, I didn't know, but retrospect, I was in septic shock. Septic shock. And so my organs were shutting down. My bladder had completely shut down at that point. I couldn't go. And I told her, I said, I feel like my bladder's going to explode and I can't go.
So you had the pressure, but you just couldn't use the restroom.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that was, of course, like a big red flag for them. They tried everything to help me go, and I just couldn't. And so they finally put a catheter in. And then around that time, like right after, some redness started creeping up my abdomen, which was new that day. I hadn't seen it before.
And that's a telltale sign.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big infection. Yeah.
Fever,
So-
was it hot to touch, or do you even remember?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And so they drew a line over it,
To
you
see
know.
if it's how much it spreads.
Yes, and had a surgeon come in and take a look at it. Infectious disease came in, took a look at it, and then everybody came back 10 minutes later after looking at the scans and stuff, and then seeing that my redness had doubled in like less than 10 minutes.
And you're at Baylor, Dallas at this point, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So they had a history on you. They knew what they'd done.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're like, oh, we just saw you, like,
Yeah.
a week ago. You
You're
just
like,
had a baby
exactly,
here.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it was just here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so luckily they had all my records there. They knew exactly, you know, when I had given birth and how that situation happened and all that. And then they came in and, like, they brought in, it was like 4 different surgeons came in. And they were like, so we don't know exactly what we're looking at. Based off of, like, the exams and the imaging and everything else. They saw a lot of, like, I think called, like, stringy stuff, like, up in my abdomen here and down low mostly, where the original incision was for the C-section. And so that was really concerning for them. And they told me, they said, we're going to have to put you into emergency surgery. It's going to be exploratory because we don't know exactly what we're going to find. So
What I'm going to stop you here
Yeah.
because I'm thinking you're a new mom. You're young.
Yeah.
I mean, you're young.
Yeah.
You're a new mama. You're trying to enjoy your baby that you just had. And that was already complicated in itself. You get your baby here, and then you can't even enjoy him because you're feeling really bad. What's going on in your head?
I think I was really checked out because I was so tired.
Were you able to hold them, coddle them, take care of them?
Yeah, I was. I just kind of fought through the pain those first few days. I mean, the first couple of days we were in the hospital, I felt fine.
Right.
It was really didn't start till like the 3rd day postpartum. And so, and at that point we were at home. So I just didn't, I don't think the magnitude of everything that was happening or the course of events and
You're
things
so sick.
was really settling into like what reality of what was happening. And I was just kind of taking it step by step. All my focus really was like on my son. And I didn't really, I was just hoping that this would be something that would just like go in its own and I could sweep it under the rug and just keep moving forward and focus on Weston and, you know, and of course it didn't. So,
So they get in there, they're doing exploratory surgery.
Yeah.
They see the stringy whatever.
Yeah, right before I went into the surgery, I remember when the main lead surgeon came in. He said, "I don't want to scare you, but this is going to be a very major surgery." And he was like, "We're hoping not to find X, Y, and Z." And one of the things was like gas. So certain bacteria create a gas in your body, and it gets trapped like in your tissue, which is where the necrosis can come from. So through the surgery, they were able to determine that I was in septic shock, I had MRSA, and necrotizing fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating bacteria.
Oh, my gosh. You had, three major deals. One of those could have killed you alone.
Oh, yeah.
But you
all
had
three are fatal.
3 fatal issues going on.
And I learned later necrotizing fasciitis has a 100% mortality rate if you don't catch it in time. Like, if you just
Thank God you got there in time.
Yeah.
Because you were, still pushing things off. And
yeah, they told me if I had waited a few more hours, it probably would not have been, I probably would not have survived.
Wow.
And so that was kind of wild to hear later. Of course, they didn't tell me that right away.
Are you still processing that?
Yeah.
It's only been 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had, I went into the surgery. I thought I was just going to have the one surgery, wake up and recover and be fine. I woke up 3 days later.
Okay, so
you're in ICU at this point.
But
yes.
Did they have you in a coma? Or?
Yeah, they kept me in a medically induced coma, and they kept my incision open for 3 days so that they could continue to go in. They
hack it with gauze, get the infection out.
They were doing debridement surgeries. And so each one was about 5 to 7 hours of debridement, and they were removing flesh, tissue, muscle. They removed a quarter of all of my muscle on my abs. And then
were you awake, or did they put you out every time? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Thank goodness.
You
did not need to see any of that.
No.
Yeah, my husband said he looked when they kept it open. They bring me back to ICU, and he was like, "I shouldn't have done that." I was like, why
he's never going to be the same again.
No.
Yeah.
But he was just curious if we both have iron stomachs for things like that, and so but seeing that on your wife, I mean, that's different.
Yeah, it's different.
So anyway, we had the 5 debridement surgeries. They removed a softball size worth of tissue. And so even on my scars, so my scars come all the way up. I have one all the way up in the middle and then out all the way out to my outer hip. So they basically just extended my C-section incision and then went all the way up because they were hoping that the infection had stayed near my incision. Yeah, but it had actually gone all the way up and stopped right before my vital organs. And then all the way through my body and stopped right over my uterus, which is at the back of your body, basically. Mm-hmm. So it had fully infiltrated majority of my abdomen at that point. So even looking in the mirror, this side of my body where the infection is higher up than my other side of my body, because they took so much out, and it's not a cosmetic surgery, so they don't even it up and make it look pretty down there.
No. Amber.
They know.
They could have given you a solid, though, couldn't they? Thrown you a solid and said, look.
When I went to my follow-up after, we finally got out of the hospital, and I looked at my surgeon, I said, you could have helped a sister out in there. I mean, I know I'm already married, but but we... so we had the surgery. They did 5 in a week.
5 surgeries in a week.
Yeah, and that was 5 days after having my C-section. So 6, really, if you count that, in less than 2 weeks. Yeah, and I was in ICU for 8 days and intubated the first day that I came out of the coma. They kept me intubated because they were going to put me back into a surgery that afternoon. But they wanted to bring me out of the coma to give. I think they can only keep you in that. So
make sure you're cognitive.
Yeah, they were kind
still
of
functioning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember my mom told me after the fact that on the second surgery they came out and told them to call family, that I wasn't going to survive the surgery, and that they needed to basically come say goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
And you're not awake to know any of this.
No.
Which is a blessing.
It is a blessing,
it is
absolutely.
I mean, but for your family.
Your mama and
your husband.
2 of my siblings live out of state. Another sibling lives like just really far East Texas.
Horrible.
Almost Louisiana area. So like everybody kind of lived out. So they all had to come in. And my sister, she's from North Carolina, like I said before, but she came in and she ended up staying for like 2 weeks so she could be the caregiver for my my son, because I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Yeah. And she like, I didn't even have to ask her to do that. She just came in. She's like, I'm going to take care of him. Y'all go, like, so my parents could come
Focus
and be with me and,
you
know, and kind of toggle between the baby and home and the hospital and things like that. And I remember waking up and I had all my family in the room, and I was coming out of the coma.
You're like, why are
and
y'all
I was
here?
Just like, yeah, I mean, my Nana was...
You're like, I know I'm popular, but...
I know.
Why I'm in this god-awful gown?
Literally. I was like... And I was intubated, so I couldn't talk to anybody.
So you're awake. So I'm curious, because I hear people get intubated. How does that feel? I mean, I know it's like, are you wanting to pull it out?
It's got to be a horrible feeling.
Yeah, so it was not so bad, like when I was first coming up, but it's like the more you come to and try to breathe on your own,
it's frustrating.
It starts irritating it.
Yeah.
And so I felt like at one point that the tube had turned sideways in my throat. I don't know if that actually happened. That's what it felt like. And I started choking, and I couldn't breathe. And so then they rush in and take it out. That is the absolute worst experience. I told the surgeon, I said, for my next few surgeries, if you don't put me out to take this thing out, I will be so mad.
Yeah.
Do not let me be awake for that.
No,
like,
the fear of that alone.
Just awful.
They just say cough on the shows, like on the medical shows, cough. And
is it real, I wonder?
I don't know. That's just what they say on the medical shows.
Yeah, but in the shows, they're pulling out like this much of stuff. It's like this long. Like, it is.
Amber's like, let me be real. That's TV. This is real.
Oh, my gosh. I felt like that thing was never going to end. You know?
Oh,
it was horrible. And I told him, I was like, don't ever make, like, I have to be asleep for that. And, but yeah, I was just telling my Nana yesterday, actually, we got talking about it, and I said, you know, I remember everyone being there. I have no clue what anybody said to me. And I was like, I don't, because so many people came up to me and, you know, they're like, saying things, I don't know what they said, but they're saying things. I remember them being there and talking to me, but I don't remember anything they were really saying. Because when you're coming out of anesthesia, it's very
hard. It's very
especially
weird.
when you've been sedated and
as
coma
much as
level.
You were, though.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I'm tired after being under sedation for 3 days after one surgery, and it's a minor sedation.
Yeah.
But you're getting hit one after another after another.
Well, and it was like very different, you know, because I had anesthesia for my C-section just prior a few days ago from this event, and so that was. You know, you're groggy no matter what. Coming out of anesthesia is like a whole different thing. But coming out of like a coma that they put you in, that was like a whole different level. And I had these, I don't know what to call them, if they're like visions, dreams, whatever. You know how people, like, as they're coming out of really deep sedation, I don't know if you've ever heard, like, they'll talk about they've seen things.
And there's also like a ICU psychosis, right?
Yeah.
When you're in ICU for a certain amount of time, you develop a psychosis.
Yes. It is kind of like very, it is kind of psychedelic. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So explain to us what you went through.
So the first one, so being a Christian, I see these as like something maybe like the Lord was speaking to, through me, or not through me, but like through these visions things.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to call them. I think they're probably just dreams, vision, like, just coming out of anesthesia. But the first one, I was just in pitch black. Felt like I was nowhere, essentially. And in the distance, the only thing that I could see was like this cross, and it was backlit with a red light, and it was like kind of this big size. And so I'm like, okay, that's naturally attracting. So I went to it, and as I got close enough, I could see the like material of it. It's like that lava rock, but it was black, like a coal kind of. And it fell forward, and behind it was a tombstone, and it had like the skeleton and the crossbones. And then I just like abruptly woke up because it scared me.
Okay, that's very vivid though.
That
like
she's very vivid.
Full on.
Yeah.
So was that freaking you out? I'm
did.
freaked out hearing it. So I'm like, did that freak you out?
It did, yeah. It scared me, and it scared me awake. But I couldn't stay awake because you slowly come out of it. So you're kind of in and out of consciousness when they are bringing you out of all that. And so I kind of came to for just a split second and then went right back into. My next kind of like dream that I had was more intense than that one. That one was just kind of like this random little blurb and then it went away. This other one, it was weird because I had like a couple different perspectives that I could see myself as. But the main one was like we were in this underground tunnel, but not like a man-made, like dug out kind of tunnel like bugs or animals like make in the ground. And I was running like really quickly, like for my life. And I look back and there's like, it sounds weird, but it's a caterpillar. But he's like those big like round knobby ones that you've seen on like maybe cartoony
like
stuff.
Alice in Wonderland, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, kind of like that. And it was red and black and had these black horns all over him.
I'm really interested in the red and black.
I am
Yes.
too, because I'm
You
like,
know?
what is
Because
it?
that is
colors mean something.
What is the?
And that
what's
was
the
also
reason?
in my first dream was the red and black. So it was
Yeah, the cross
the black
with the-
cross
yeah.
with the back
Yeah.
red light. And then the red and black was on the
caterpillar.
So this
thing
this
there.
thing was chasing you.
Yes, and his face was like the devil. So it was like the traditional, like with the horns and the everything. I mean, it just was like really creepy. And so I kept trying to wake myself up from this because I was like, it was
Oh my
really
God,
freaking me out. And I couldn't, like every time I would come out of it and go back in it, it would just like
Pick up where it
basically
left
start
off?
and stop. Yeah, it was just picking up where I left off each time I kind of sucked back in.
Oh my gosh!
That would be so
And each
freaky.
time I went back into it, he was closer.
Oh no! I'd be like, you better
Yeah.
keep me awake.
But
I
I,
know.
think this is the psychosis that you
Yes,
hear about.
yes.
100%.
100%. And so he was getting closer and closer, and of course I'm like just huffing and puffing, trying to like get away. And we're in this we're like underground in this little dugout tunnel. And then all of a sudden, like literally as he's like jumping to get me within distance of being able to like catch me, this huge bright light comes, and as I'm looking back at the caterpillar, then I just feel this yank, and I get yanked out of it, and it was done. And I never went back into
And it
it,
was
even as I
peaceful.
slipped back into it. Yeah, and after that, it was peaceful, and it was calming, and I came to not long after that, and
I
all
wonder
my
if
family
the
was
infection
there.
started to settle, too.
Yeah.
There's so many symbolic things to
Yeah.
this story.
A
Like,
lot
really.
of symbolic things. We need to get someone to analyze this.
oh, we should.
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh, that would be great.
That would be. We need that.
I've
do.
always been like interested, in the very beginning through my healing journey. I felt confused a lot.
Sure.
Confused of what these dreams might mean. Do they mean anything? And then like just
You
why
need to
things
get
happened.
on like a Facebook group or something of people who've had near-death experiences,
Uh-huh.
and y'all need to have conversations and see if stuff matches up.
You need to
I think
hook her
that
up
would
with
be pretty
Patty.
amazing. Oh yeah,
I have-
We should.
Yeah, they have a necrotizing fasciitis like survivor page
Okay.
on Facebook. So I have joined that, and I joined it pretty shortly after I came home from the hospital. And that actually has helped a lot. Like I've
Good.
met a few people.
Has
through
any
there.
has any of them had
Near-death
such a
experience.
severe case
Oh.
that you did?
Girl, I am not severe compared to so many of those stories.
Yours is very severe.
Yeah, well, yes. Yes, but,
No, but to hear you say that, I'm
People-
like, that's pretty bad. Like,
Yeah.
people are losing limbs. People are losing,
Crazy.
just astronomical. There's a girl in particular that have become friends with on Facebook through that page. Her story blows my mind. She has had over 100 and some surgeries over the course of a few years. I mean, some people get it recurrent, necrotizing fasciitis, like get it more than once. I mean,
So it makes me wonder, since you've had it once, are you
know.
more susceptible to getting it again then? Because it's
I-
kind of laying dormant in your
yeah.
system, maybe?
I don't know. Like that has been something that I've always and I might have asked that. There's always details that I like forget or
Yeah.
because it was such a hazy period.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know 100%, but I mean I would assume it's probably not that difficult once
So
your
are
body
you?
experiences
You're
it.
asymptomatic now. You don't have any symptoms.
No, they sent me home. I had a wound vac for 5 months. I had home health nursing for 3 days a week. They came and changed my all of my, what do you call that?
Dressing?
Dressings. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, and I had a home health nurse for 6 months, but I was only on the wound vac for 5. And that thing is very annoying. You have to carry it everywhere. I mean, you're on it 24/7. You cannot unattach from it. And it's not comfortable, but it's not terrible either. But you wear it, like, people think it's like a purse. Like, I went to the doctor for something normal, and she's like, oh, you can set your purse down. I'm like, well, I really can't, because this is part of me.
Kind of saving lives.
Like, it's a part of me
keeping me alive right now.
You went through the 5 surgeries. Were you done after that, or did you have to keep having surgeries?
No, I was done with surgeries. I just had an open wound. Because they had cut so much flesh from one side, they couldn't close all the way. So down, like, near the bottom where the horizontal, like, kind of where the T, it's like an upside down T, basically, how my scars are. So about this area, they couldn't close because there was too much tension, and it would just, like, basically
rip
pop
open. Yeah.
And so that's what they used the wound vac and the home health nursing to try and basically pull your body heals from the inside out. So, like, the depth of the open incision, like, was the vacuum, basically is what it is. It's like a vacuum, the wound vac. And it pulls your abdomen and, like, generates healing and generates new tissue and, like, all the new veins and, I mean, everything down there. I mean, I could feel a lot of it for a long time, just pressure or, like, tugging, but I couldn't, like, feel much.
Yeah, because the nerves had disconnected.
Yes. Tugging.
Well, I do have to ask, you've had this new baby, now you're dealing with all this stuff, and it interfered with your bonding.
Yes.
How did you make up for that, and how are you guys doing now?
We're doing really great now. When I first got home, it was very tough. When I couldn't hold him, I couldn't feed him, I couldn't change him, I could barely move myself, I couldn't shower by myself, couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. Every single thing I did, I couldn't do by myself. And I couldn't be alone. So I constantly had friends or family there taking care of Weston and helping me. So I always had somebody 24/7. But it was really hard when I was away from him for 2 weeks. We had only been together the first 5 days, 4 days really, because that 5th day I was going to the hospital early in the morning. So just really those first 4 days, I got to bond with him, and I did feel an immediate bond, of course, like when he was born, and everything was amazing and blissful. And then I got home from the hospital 2 weeks later, and I was very disassociated from him. And I felt like we had lost that bond, and it didn't bother me that everyone else was taking care of my baby and I didn't or couldn't.
Was it postpartum too, or?
I mean, there's definitely some depression there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was necessarily postpartum or surgeries or what happened, but she was just in survival mode. You were in survival mode.
Honestly, and so it was really tough. Like when I first moved back or came back home after those 2 weeks being gone from him, my sister was a saint. I mean, she was FaceTiming me all the time, and when he was just eating or just doing tummy time or like just anything that I could like be a part of. And then we slowly, like, we had one of those rolling bassinets, you know? And so they would put him in there, and I could like play with him in the bassinet or like feed him, just hold his bottle while he's laying in there propped up and stuff, because I couldn't hold him on my belly. So if I tried to hold him, I'd put a bunch of like pillows and hold him, but like usually less than 5 minutes, I'm having to hand him back off.
Let's go back to, were you planning on breastfeeding?
Yes.
And so you couldn't because of the infection then, right?
Exactly. They said I could, but I'd had to pump him down for a long time.
Yeah, that probably messed with you a little. You didn't want your baby to get sick.
Yeah, in fact, my husband, while I was still unconscious, they were coming to him, of course, with all this paperwork, all these questions. And one of the things was, should we continue? Like, she's going to have to be pumped, like manually pump stuff because I was breastfeeding before I came in. Well, then he had to make a tough decision, and it was the right decision.
Right.
And he feels bad because he knows that I like really wanted that experience to breastfeed, and he, told them, I think it's probably fine to just go ahead and dry up. They were like, yeah, she's really hardly producing anything. Like her body is just too exhausted. Yeah, has been through so much, and I was on antibiotics for 6 months after. So even if I continued to pump, like I wouldn't have been able to feed that to my child. So it was just like, and I didn't want to, because I was really strong antibiotics and things, and I was just like, I don't want to put that in, into the milk and feed that to him. So, so we switched to formula while I was still in the hospital, and my husband, like, has a hard time sometimes, I think, still. He's told me a few times, like, having to make that decision because he felt bad because he knew that was, like, a really strong desire of mine. But, of course, I reassure him.
But
Like, that was the
he put
right
you first
decision.
in
Good for you
Yeah.
to validate
was-
that for him, because
Absolutely.
I think, and
Yeah.
good for you, husband,
Yeah.
to make that decision, because
It's a hard
decision.
Yeah.
But he was not just focused on you; he was focused on that newborn,
Oh, absolutely.
and being that role model that he can do to take care of wife and take care of the kid.
Oh,
And it was going to
And the
be a
chaos.
long recovery.
He-
It was in your best,
Yeah.
yes. He
best
was
interest.
amazing. I mean, God couldn't have blessed me better with a husband like him, because he was at my side every single night and would go home for a few hours every single day and spend time with Weston and then come back to the hospital so that I didn't have to be alone. And then he was working full time when I got home, and I couldn't get up in the night. Once I was down, I couldn't even like lay flat for a long time either. So I was like really propped up in bed, and it was really painful to move at all. And so he would have to get up with the baby every 2 hours, and then he's going to work all day long, hard manual labor for like 10 to 12 hours, coming home, taking care of me, doing dishes, washing bottles, taking care of the baby. Like, never complained, never even acted like he was tired. I mean, it was just really like
Aw, what's his name?
Andrew.
Well,
Shout out to you, Andrew.
You
are
My
amazing.
goodness, yeah.
He
Every
is
woman needs a
amazing.
man.
But you guys
Literally.
have found the greener pastures on the other side of this, and it's been
Yes.
amazing what your family has been through and bonded through that, and just pointing out the importance of having support and community and letting people, having the wherewithal to know to let people help you. And that's so important, because we all need that. And I mean, it just makes us stronger.
You made
It makes
international
us stronger.
news, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, so in the UK, it was an independent journalist, and they have to like find their own stories. And so she told me one of the ways she does that is she gets on GoFundMe and looks at stories that people
What's it called?
GoFundMe, the GoFundMe stuff.
Oh,
The
GoFundMe.
people
So she had a
donate
GoFundMe
for-
account.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
like, what?
Because
Okay.
you can post like your stories
Yeah.
and pictures.
And because y'all didn't have
raise-
insurance, somebody
Yes.
put up an account for you guys.
Mhm.
Yes,
So they
to
put
help.
that up. Yeah, and also for the home health nursing.
Yes.
And medical supplies and the whole nine.
The whole 9 yards.
So, she reached out to me through Facebook, and I thought it was a scam, so I didn't really respond at first. And then she sent another message and was like, "Hey, like, I'm just letting you know, like, you can check us out. Like, we are legit." And I was really kind of timid, so I was responding, but I was really like, I don't know about this. It's kind of fishy. Like, it's kind of weird that she just like randomly reached out to me from the UK.
Yeah, at all places UK.
Yeah, and I was like, how did you find my story? And so anyway, she came across it, and she was like, I really want to write an article about your story. Like, it's really, something that I feel like would inspire other women, or just raise awareness, and things like that. And so we finally, like, talked over the phone, and really talking to her is what helped solidify me feeling better about it. And I checked out, like, her company that she worked for and things like that, and it was legit. And she's like, we'll pay you for the pictures and things. I mean, it was not much, like $30 or something. So I was like, I don't even care. Like,
You just want to educate people
Yeah.
on this is what could happen.
absolutely. So I told her my story. She wrote an article, and because they're independent, they kind of put it out in whatever source.
Picks
They're
it
looking
up.
for a source
Yeah.
to pick it up. So Daily Mail picked it up. They're an international online newspaper. I mean, they write stories about everything, like celebrities and then like personal stories. I mean, so it's really a wide range of what they report on.
Well, I just feel like that's a blessing that she did that. I feel like that's amazing that she, understood the impact of your story and how important that is.
Yeah.
Also, just your attitude about this whole thing. There's
Yeah, I
like,
mean, just
I'm
like-
not feeling like you're acting like I'm the victim and I've been
know,
through
you're just
this.
like
And
kind of like-
you're just like matter of fact,
Ma-
but it's just like you're just so happy to be on the other side of it.
I know.
And
I
just-
mean, truly, yeah. I went through a lot, I think, to get to the point of where I can talk about it so nonchalant, maybe, because, I did go through counseling.
That's good. I
yes,
like to hear that.
because I was
it's a trauma.
handling, yeah.
Big trauma.
I was handling it, and when I came off of my wound vac, I had this, like, natural dopamine high of just feeling, like, so much more confident. I'm like, oh, I'm finally getting better, right? So I started seeing real results in my healing, and that really spiked my mental health. Well, then, of course, like, that crashed, and then I didn't know where to go after that, and that's when I started counseling.
Good. I mean, I think
And,
that's a
yeah.
great message too, that just seek counseling. Don't try to handle these things on your own.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have that outlet. You have to be able to process through it, you know, in an appropriate way that allows you healing.
It does, and it comes and goes, you know. There would be times where the whole time I'm crying, and then there would be times where I'm, like, making jokes, and it was just
I think both are appropriate.
Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism, right?
It is. And she told me, she's like, I think that you are grieving, grieving the motherhood I always thought I would have. You know, God has always put on my heart very strongly the desire to be a mother and a wife. And I thought, that was something I really struggle with, is why would you put this so heavily, a desire in my heart, and then I almost died for it. I almost lost it, you know, and now my life has changed forever because of it. And I just was really, like, I felt like I just kind of hit a wall, and I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know how to process it. I was angry. I was just going through all the grief steps, honestly. Like, even when you look them up and they sound so cliche when you're reading them, but then when you're experiencing grief, like, it truly is such a different process.
It is. And everybody grieves differently.
Exactly.
And you just have to accept that there's no right or wrong way.
Yeah. And so I was really, I'd gone with her for several months, and then I was starting to feel a lot better. I thought I could, you know, my husband had emergency back surgery last year, so we kind of had to cut funds in ways, so that was one of the things we cut. And then after that, I was like, well, I don't think I need to go back. I'm feeling okay. And then it just starts creeping back up on you, you know? Like, just a few months ago, I was having these, like, unexplained, like, hysteria moments where I just couldn't stop crying for, like, no apparent reason. I mean, I was just, like, having these extreme breakdowns, and I, like, couldn't control it, and nothing was truly prompting it. It was just, like, coming out of random. And I've had, I mean, countless. I think I cried, like, 6 times a day for months after. I mean,
I would too.
I would too. I mean, my poor husband, like, he's just been my rock through all of it. But God has just truly transformed my heart, I think, in being able to finally, like, accept it.
Yeah.
I'm just now, a year and a half later, like, feeling that I can maybe accept and, like, feel a little bit more peace about my situation, and not so much of, like, sad that this happened.
Well, I encourage you, though, when you guys are financially able to, go back and get some, you know, just counseling just to, you know, touch up. You know, let's kind of refine what we've been working on. Let's just keep moving forward.
Even if it's once a month, it's maintenance.
It's maintenance.
It's like maintenance. Yeah. I mean, I still go even when I don't need it because I say I don't need it, and you get in there and you start speaking to your therapist, which, by the way, she's not my therapist, okay?
I'm not.
I'd have fired her. Okay. But anyway, you learn, too, that you don't think you need it, and you go in there and they start asking you, with all their professional knowledge, they start asking questions. You're like, okay, we walk out there, like, maybe I do need it, you know?
It gives you a place where you can talk about anything, and you don't feel the burden of burdening someone else like that you're close to, especially since your husband's also been through this trauma. Yeah. Kind of gives you a special place where you can just leave it there.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome.
I've also, like, because I had such a huge, like, community around me that was praying for me and, like, helping support through this entire journey, I have been very vulnerable purposely on my Facebook of, like, even when I'm feeling very low, I'll post something and people,
I love that.
You know, and a little bit ago, I started, like, at the end of those more vulnerable posts, I would put a hashtag, like, heal out loud, because I think that's really important.
I love that. Heal
That's
out
beautiful.
loud. I love that.
And I think using that as kind of your journal, you can go back at some point and write your own book or something to help others.
Well, and here's the deal. You know, I hear you say, Amber, that you didn't get to enjoy what nirvana motherhood would be, giving birth and stuff. But what I do think God's doing through you is he's going to help you walk other women through a similar journey that you've experienced. Yeah. And I think that's so important because, you know, we're always taught that this life's not perfect and it's not going to be easy. But you're always given tools to help navigate. And who knows, maybe you're the tool that's going to help another woman navigate through things that you've been through similarly.
Yeah, honestly, you know? I have felt a more, I guess, a calling to talk about it because, you know, that's why when she reached out to me about the article, I was like, okay, you know, like, that'd be cool to put out there and raise awareness and, you talking about listening to your body, really preparing yourself for either side of how your birth story could go. Because I was fully prepared for a natural birth.
You're prepared for butterflies and rainbows, right?
Yes.
But it is important to prepare for both.
It is.
Even you weren't prepared for fire and brimstone.
No. So I just, and then from her original article, a magazine picked it up in the UK. So then I have another
way to
source
speak
that
to
published
others.
it. Yeah, and it was through a women's magazine. It's kind of a little more tabloidy, but it was just like, it's just like real life stories and things. And so I have like a 2-page spread there, which is really cool. I didn't even know it was going to be like that. I'm on the cover. I didn't know that either until I got it.
We'll share that with the listeners too.
If our listeners, if any of you have questions or you've been through something and you need some support, reach out to either us and we'll get you connected to Amber, because we just want to make sure that you guys are supported and feel, and find that healing through that. So we'll make sure you get connected to her. I have to say, your baby is so blessed to have you as his mama.
Yeah, he's amazing. I'm blessed to have him, honestly. I couldn't have asked for a better baby. He's been, and I think that also has been a huge blessing through all of this, because I couldn't be 100% for him physically, and he was like such an easy child.
Yeah.
So nice, so easy, so, he has his normal baby moments and things, but
try his apology, Mom, I'm sorry I put you through this. I'm going to be good, I promise.
Well, there are big things out there going to happen for all of you, and we look forward to keeping up with your story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I was looking forward to being able to tell it in my words for once, so it's nice
100%
to put it out there. And I do want to encourage women, it's just important to really listen to your body, and regardless of your financial situation, it's important to plan and educate yourself. And through any of that, I'm still want another baby, and we're hoping to have one next year. So
we can't wait to hear about that.
We'll have to do a follow-up, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's still hope after all that, and my faith has strengthened a lot through all of it. But it's been a wild journey, but it's been a good one in the end. And so I think it's just going to be something I can carry with me and kind of speak truth in life into a lot of women over the years. So
you are an amazing lady and an amazing mama.
Thank you for
being
appreciate
on the show.
you having
so
me.
much.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.